Well, here we are once again. Gather round and listen, pray tell, to another episode of Paladins lore. Today, we pick up where we left off, continuing our discussion on the Transformed. Those heroes and villains who were once mortal but have since abandoned their lives to something different. But before we get into that, I am proud to announce that this channel has officially been accepted into the Epic Games Creator Program. Hooray! This means that this content and these videos are one step closer to being noticed by Hi-Rez or Evil Mojo in any single way, shape, or form. If you want to help this video and lore series in general be noticed and positively integrated into the actual game, there are now two avenues to make that happen. If you have a Twitter account, you could very respectfully tweet these videos out to the developers and the Paladins Twitter account itself. Just remember that the whole point of this lore series is to be constructive with the lore and not destructive, so please do not be mean or rude if you do choose to tweet or otherwise send these videos to those individuals I've previously mentioned. However, what you can do now, instead of tweeting or otherwise spreading awareness for these videos, is use my new Epic Games Creator tag to purchase gems on the Epic Games Store. If you enter code Sogoodcontent when checking out on the Epic Games Store for literally anything, you will be sending Hi-Rez and Evil Mojo a message that they simply cannot ignore. The lore can make money, and this is honestly the best chance we have at seeing it be expanded in any sense. But yeah, anyway, now that that's over, let's get back into this week's lore focus on the Transformed. Genos, the Ascended. Whoever coined the term "hell hath no fury like a scorned woman" has obviously never come face to face with a goblin horde. Horrific creatures they are, ripping down and tearing to bits whatever they can get their petulant little hands on, debasing and salting the very land they walk on. No, it simply cannot be put into words the suffering they inflicted upon us. We should have learned. We should have expected the goblins to rise and become a threat once again. My father always said, a pest left ill-handled quickly festers into a deadly affliction, and the goblin horde had already been spared the fate they'd so rightfully earned after their first such scourge. We wrongfully assumed that killing most of them would teach them a lesson, one they wouldn't soon forget, but all it did was infuriate them, make them more vicious, more conniving. Once their numbers had begun to swell, it was only a matter of time before their greedy and vicious nature prompted them to war once again. They razed our cities, razed our armies, killed our families, and stole from us our very way of life. I'm ashamed to admit it, but that impish incursion forced those of us survivors into the highest peaks of the realm, to the top of Ascension Peak. It must have been something to do with the altitude. The climate just didn't agree with their wretched little green bodies. And so, in these peaks we lived, and we prayed, hoping for salvation that might come from the only place we had left to look to with hope in our hearts, the stars above. And that is where I met him. He was a friend of mine. No, I guess in truth he was more of an acquaintance. A quiet man, always contemplative, always gazing up into the night sky. But while the rest of us saw the stars, the sun, and the moon, Genos saw further. He stared past those twinkling gems of hope, past the sun and moon that had nurtured us, and past the all-consuming darkness that surrounded them. He stared at the cosmos itself. And the cosmos stared back. This power, this entity, whatever it is, witnessed Genos, the mere mortal man, and it shined on him. Like a child being scooped into the loving arms of its mother, Genos was plucked from our midst. And, exactly what it is that happened to him up there in that celestial plane, only he can tell you that for sure. All I know is that when he returned to our mortal realm, he came no longer as a man, but as a deity, one who commanded the insight and arcane power of the constellations themselves, and just in time as well. For even though the second Goblin Scourge had ended, with their ranks being enslaved to serve the Magistrate, we, the people of Ascension Peak, were still not safe from harm. The Ruby Throne had returned, and in their desperate search for a weapon powerful enough to defeat the Resistance, they marched on our home. We, frightful servants to the cosmos, watched from the windows of our monasteries as our god defended us from this foreign incursion. With radiating bolts of cosmic force, Genos brought the realm's finest soldiers and most experienced veterans down to their knees with but a momentary flick of his attention. It was this sight, this moment, that proved to us, those who had never lost faith, that salvation had finally returned. And not a moment too soon. For now, a new conflict surrounds us, one that threatens us, one that has cast an unassailable rift down the very middle of our once golden realm, and one that pushes us closer towards the brink of calamity. Save us, Genos. Save us from strife and harm. Save us from ourselves. Save us from the cosmic horrors that lie beyond our oh-so-crude sight. For you are the cosmos' chosen. Genos, the Ascended One. Dredge, the Admiral of the Abyss. Have you ever heard the pirate tale of Captain Judd Roberts? A dastardly man, driven by those traditional tenets most pirates aspire to: greed, bloodlust, and a desperate yearning for glory and legacy. And for better or worse, a legacy is what Captain Judd had crafted for himself. One steeped in all the infamy befitting a rogue pirate captain whose quick wit and strategic prowess had wrested him control over the 8 Oceans pirate network. There were challengers, of course, but they competed with Captain Judd the same way a keel-hauled man's back competes against the bottom of a ship. And though the Magistrate refused to admit it, Captain Judd had proven himself to be a most capable naval commander, as each and every attempt made to dethrone him had proved, well, unsatisfactory. However, it was in the resulting turmoil of the Magistrate's war against the Paladins that the 8 Seas had become something of a pirate kingdom, with Judd Roberts as its sovereign king. And what with his 2 natural enemies competing against each other instead of him, he was in prime position to expand his empire. And Captain Roberts could think of no better way than to do what hadn't been done since the days of the Warders. With quick commands and the finest ship on all the world's seas, Captain Judd easily smashed the Paladins' fleet at the Battle of the Warders' Vault, taking from them an ancient artifact of unfathomable power. An artifact that would give Judd the means to call forth one of the world's only remaining Elder Dragons. And, well, the dragon came as it was compelled to, and in Captain Judd's eyes, he had won. But where the Warders of old dominated their dragons with both charisma and magical prowess, Dredge was found lacking in both regards. In the salty reaches of the ocean's floor, Judd's honorless corpse sank. Worms crawled through the eviscerated remains of his organs, and barnacles made their homes on his waterlogged hide. Though where any average man would have found nothing but death, the former captain found salvation. For where a dragon demands charisma, the abyss only demands servitude. And Captain Judd Roberts would serve if it meant a chance at vengeance and a new legacy. And so the tide-struck bastard of the seas, known as Judd Roberts, was dead, and in his place the Abyss's chosen admiral rose, Captain Dredge, wielding a very piece of his mysterious deep master, a piece he uses to extract his legacy. From every home he burns and every soldier he slays, Dredge will take what he is owed. Ceres, the Oracle of the Abyss. We could start our story with 2 loving sisters, and the tragedy that separated them forever. But to be honest, That story has long since passed. And the truth is, the being who has possessed the body of Furia's late sister has long since devoured and done away with any traces of that originally pious soul. In truth, Ceres is a being who has existed for almost all of existence, residing deep within the darkest fathoms of the abyssal void, waiting, watching, plotting, carefully laying down a convoluted trap thousands of years in the making so that now, at this precise moment, she would be exactly where she is now. Appearing throughout the course of all mortal events, Ceres' mysterious nature seems to contradict itself. At times, she works for the magistrate, summoning grand beasts and healing the greater forces of the Ruby Throne. And yet, at other times, she's been rumored to assist the Paladins of the Resistance, breaking curses and giving key intel to its leaders. During the end times, when portals to vast and unimaginable dimensions opened across the realms, Ceres was seen fighting for both sides. Some say they even saw her fighting against another version of herself. Though who knows which of these stories can be heralded as true, and which of them were crafted by her own deceitful lips to serve some unseen directive. Though some foolish mortals see the power she wields as being something that can be controlled, something that can be harnessed, Ceres alone knows the truth. The Abyss serves no man, not even those whom it has chosen as its champions. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Paladins Lore. Remember to use the code Sogoodcontent during checkout on the Epic Games Store and share these videos around to give us a better shot at uplifting the lore. And, as always, this has been So Good, reminding you once again to keep on loving good stuff.